Welcome back. You're watching Hard Copy coming to you from our studios in Abuja. My guest tonight is Ayisha Osori, who is a lawyer, journalist, and now author of the book Love Does Not Win Elections. Now, I'm going to ask you quickly, coming from civil society, and you know, all of the pushing we hear from them most times, they have a lot of conferences and seminars to try and get people to get involved. Do you think they're aware of the depth, of what really needs to be done for people to be able to even pick up the primary candidacy of any party?
I think they are. Honestly, I would find it hard to believe that what I went through was a secret. Maybe nobody's documented it in the way that I have, but it can't be a secret because even members of civil society have run. But you see, our politics, as I mentioned, we've been running it the same way for over 50 years. So I think people think of it as set in stone, something that can't change, and you're either just a part of, you navigate it as best as you can. But I think that it's all designed to keep out the best and encourage the worst. And
if you say that they are aware, how do they tell people to navigate, navigate the thin line between gifts and, in some instances, bribes?
Thin line. I honestly, I would say that I've never been in a conference where anybody's having those conversations. Again, that's why I wrote the book. I'm sort of new to civil society. I only joined civil society in 2012. So by the time I ran in 2014, I'd only been part of civil society for 2 years. So I won't presume that I'd been to all the conferences. But for the few that I've been to, we focused on things that, this is why we're talking to women and young people, on the obvious obstacles. Then I would hear this phrase, parties don't have internal, and I'm like, what does that mean?
Internal democracy.
Yeah, parties have no internal party democracy, but nobody would break it down. And again, in this book, I now explain that means it's hard to join parties. That means when you join a party, you don't even know who your other members are. That means when it comes to selecting delegates, it's not really an election, it's more a selection or appointment.
Would you say you understand the delegate system now?
Yeah, I do, pretty much. I mean, I think it varies from parties to parties, but pretty much the Electoral Act allows parties to decide you can run your primaries either by direct primaries, which means every member will vote, or you do indirect, which means you now select a few party members to make the selection on behalf of the party. Now, the parties will tell you they don't like direct because it's too expensive. But then you ask them, so which kind of party members do you have? They don't want to have direct because it's harder to control. That's one. Two, I would challenge most parties, at least I would challenge PDP, if they really know how many members they actually have, if their records are auditable and verifiable. So how can you have direct primaries when you don't even know how many members you have? Do you understand what I'm saying? Then the indirect ones come where you have most parties will have 2 layers of delegates. You have the automatic delegates, who is party royalty. So for example, Ahmed Mwazu would be an automatic delegate. He's the national chair. He's going to vote on that day.
He was national chair.
Yes.
There's a new national chair now.
Yes, was, exactly. And then you'd have a layer within every ward. They would say, pick 3 or pick 4. In PDP was pick 3. Pick 3, make sure one is a woman. And so those people would form the people who would vote.
But you were able to manipulate even that. The fact that, the party doesn't know how many people it has on his book, and the fact that, you still could backdate your membership. So in some ways, it does leave room for manipulations.
Yes, but that manipulation is bad for everyone. So again, I see that, people want to manipulate systems so that it suits them individually. But when we look at the system in its entirety, we find that it's bad for the country. It's bad for everybody. We shouldn't want systems that we can manipulate for individuals. We should want systems that are transparent and clear and work for everyone.
Let's talk about women in politics. Now, you talked about one of the reasons why you wanted to run. You wanted to increase the number of women. You wanted to talk more about women issues. You were appalled at the reaction of women in the National Assembly to women issues.
Yeah.
But do you think that women who go to the National Assembly automatically need to be concerned about gender issues?
Well, I wouldn't say they should automatically be, but I would say that if really our votes counted as Nigerians, then they should care about what half of the population care about. Does that make sense? So if you know that in some states, INEC's data has told us that even in some states, I can't recall all of them now, when you analyze the voters register, you find that in some states there are even more women registered than men. So yeah, I wouldn't say that women in the National Assembly should automatically be pro-women, but you should care at least of some of the basic things that women would care about. And women would care about sexual violence, harassment, marriage laws, domestic laws, employment, harassment, access to reproductive health rights, education for their children. They should care about those things because women vote, right? So I'm not saying that if you're a woman and you've been elected, you should just automatically be pro-women. per se, but I would say care about what half your population care about.
Interesting. How would you say that narrative, because you also talked about, these are your words, narrative around women in politics in Nigeria is nasty and sexist. A common description for women who are involved in politics is prostitute. Is that narrative changing?
No, and I'm really upset right now, actually, about a story that I heard a few days ago about a local government chairman in Fakai, which is in Kebbi State, who slapped a councillor, a female councillor, and has been bragging left, right, and center that there's nothing anybody can do about it. At a meeting, got up, slapped her twice in front of her colleagues, and is still the local government chair. So, yeah, there is that sense that if you're a woman and you're out there, that anything you get, you deserve. And that's really wrong.
How would you say, what do you think can be done to change the narrative?
For around women?
Yes.
Well, I would say that in addition to just changing the framing around politics in general, so that more and more people, young people, old people, middle-class people, feel more comfortable getting into that space, then we should also make sure that our laws are protective of women. So if you have a senator slapping, a male senator slapping a female senator, then you would like to think that his party would descend on him. You would like to think that the leadership of the Senate would descend on that person and make him pay, so that it will send a very strong message to everybody. I think it's only those types of, you do something and there's a reaction, adverse reaction. But right now, there's no adverse reaction. So it'll be hard to change the narrative. I would like to change the narrative just by saying nice things, or there are women who are... But the reality is what I just said about this woman who was slapped in Kebbi. And so how would I convince a young girl who's 18, 23, who actually might be interested that, oh, her society will protect her if she decides to step forward because she wants to serve her country or her community?
How would you say that also this thing about indigent versus settler, which you had to also confront, how is it changing in terms of politics?
To be honest, I think it's changing positively. I like to use Lagos as an example because it's an obvious one, but I guess Lagos is leading the way in more ways than one. And you find people who are not Lagosians in that sense, or not from Lagos in the way it's defined in our constitution, who are in the House of Representatives.
But would you say it is right? I mean, I know one instance.
Is it right?
Is it right? Do you think it is right for them to be able to change constituencies whenever they please? So, for instance, you have a member who is in the House of Reps now, or who ran as deputy governor in his original state of origin. I mean, doesn't that raise some sort of conflict?
It does. I mean, again, it comes back to what I said a few minutes ago about how Nigerians seem to, the politicians and their friends like systems that they can manipulate for themselves. When women asked a few months ago that, okay, give us women at least a chance to have dual citizenship, make it formalized, because if I, from Kogi State, get married to a man from Lagos and we live in Kaduna, where am I from? What can I choose? Because women particularly suffer from that, make it part of the constitution that recognizes that we can have dual. They refused. But as you pointed out, some guy who is politically connected can do that. So we like systems that can be manipulated for ourselves. We don't want to address institutional, fundamental structures that prevent people. So for me, honestly, I'm for common citizenship. A Nigerian, anywhere, should run from anywhere. Let the people in the community decide whether they want that person or not.
I'm already being wound up. You've switched parties to the PD, to the APC right now.
Yeah.
Do you think things will be any different?
No.
It's interesting you say that. But we have to thank you most kindly for coming on Hard Copy. Thank you.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, that's the program tonight. If you're seriously considering running for an elective office, Love Does Not Win Elections might be a good place to start. We also want to hear from you. Please write to us using the handles on your screen. Thank you for watching tonight. I'm Mao Bogun. Good night.